और 80+ को लेके चलेंगे। फ्लक्चुएशन के साथ रखेंगे, फुल स्टॉप का गैप देंगे, मे बी यू विल बी रेडी। एक एक डे कम होता जा रहा है, 15 ओनली, अब जो कितने रह गए, 14 डेज रह गए ओनली। 16 को एग्ज़ाम है और आज 2 तारीख हो गई है। अपनी गलतियों पर प्रॉपर फोकस होकर काम करेंगे, मोटिवेट रहेंगे, प्रॉपर फोकस रहेंगे। स्मॉल कैपिटल, छोटी छोटी गलतियों को बड़ी बारीकी से देखेंगे। स्टार्ट करते हैं। स्टार्ट इट। सर, as a teacher, I am pleased to note that the government have appointed an old teacher, Dr. Kothari, as the chairman of the University Grants Commission. We are proud of his scholarship and of his devotion to duty, and we feel that under his able guidance, the University Grants Commission would be able to render increasing service to the cause of education in this country. I am glad to know from the Education Minister that the University Grants Commission and the Education Ministry are functioning harmoniously, but I wish to point out that in the last report of the University Grants Commission, the Commission pointed out certain difficulties in carrying out its responsibilities. I do not know what steps were taken afterwards to remove those difficulties and to ensure to the University Grants Commission autonomy which is its due. Sir, we are holding conferences of the Ministers of Education and conferences of the Vice Chancellors of the universities, and I feel that we should also hold conferences of the chairmen of the University Grants Commissions of various states. In spite of that jurisdiction, we are holding conferences of Vice Chancellors of universities, and we are dealing with various educational questions. If there are no University Grants Commissions in certain states, and if they are not functioning properly, it is the duty of the Education Minister at the center to deal with that problem. Also, in the conference of the Ministers of Education of the various states, if they find some difficulty in having a conference of the chairman of the University Grants Commissions of the various states, I do submit that the universities are not functioning as autonomously as perhaps the Education Minister wished them to function. I know that in the last report of the University Grants Commission, it was said that freedom is vital to good education and democracy, and I know that our Education Minister today also repeated the same idea in other words, but I am afraid that interference in university education is rather increasing. The bureaucratic spirit is tending to dominate the university life much more than it did when we were under the British regime. Universities in certain states are tending to be instruments of the government's policies. Intra-party conflicts at government level and often conflicts between the state governments and the union government in certain cases cause difficulties in the administration. I do know that for the present state of affairs, teachers and students are to an extent responsible, but I beg to submit that the higher authorities are in no way less responsible for the present state of affairs in our universities. Without mentioning names, we know that proper care is not taken in the appointment of vice chancellors. If the system of election has failed, selection by government has proved no better so far as the cries of the vice chancellors are concerned. In many universities, the directors of education are chosen as vice chancellors, and I have reason to believe that their section is in general resented by the professors of the universities concerned. I do admit that some of the directors of education might be fit even to be in charge of universities, but I do feel that if the government wish that persons in charge of secondary education should also take interest in university education, it is proper to appoint them as university professors before they are appointed as vice chancellors of universities. I have in my mind a person like Dr. Amarnath Jha, who belonged to the provisional education service. He served as a university professor, had experience of university education, and then when he became the vice chancellor of the university, he discharged his duties as vice chancellor admirably well. I wish to point out that personal character, wide human sympathy, interest and understanding of university education, capacity for leadership, faith in the democratic ideals, reputation for learning and confidence of the authorities are absolutely necessary. In a good vice chancellor, and proper care should be taken in devising ways and means for selecting proper persons as vice chancellors of universities. I welcome the new pay scales of teachers of the central universities. I do wish to point out that there is a great need for the amalgamation of the grades of lecturers and readers. Most of the teacher conflicts are due to these two grades of lecturers and readers, and greater harmony will prevail among teachers in case the two grades subject to certain efficiency bar are amalgamated. I do feel that there is no marked difference in the abilities of teachers of central and state universities, and there is need for equalization of the pay of teachers of state universities. Whoever may be responsible for the difference in pay, the country would suffer if there is no equalization of pay, because disaffection would continue and this will tend to spoil the university life and standards. I wish to point out that some system of transfers should be encouraged by the University Grants Commission. Mr. Deputy Chairman, Sir, I welcome the bill which has been moved by the Honorable Minister. This is a bill which has got the consent of the important organizations of the scheduled castes and of the scheduled tribes, and as such it is in the fitness of things that we should try to respond to the desire of those organizations and their representatives. Sir, the sentiment of those organizations is quite understandable, because in the arrangement as it exists at present, those members of the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes who want to take advantage of the reservation made for them in the Constitution in order to represent certain constituencies in the legislatures are laboring under a distinct disadvantage. The disadvantage is that a double member constituency by its very nature is an unwieldy constituency, and except in certain urban areas, the constituency covers a very wide area and it becomes very difficult for any member to approach each and every voter as he should and to convey them his ideas, his policies and his programs and to canvass his vote. Sir, it is a well known fact that the larger the constituency, the greater the expenditure for any candidate who wants to get the votes of the electorate in that constituency. ये जो कंटेंट आपको बोला गया है ये 1050 प्लस वर्ड है और इसकी स्पीड 100 की है. 230 और 231 से बोला गया है. नेक्स्ट लिखेंगे आप कंटेंट. Start it. The budget presented by the Honorable Finance Minister no doubt has laudable objectives. But unfortunately, the laudable objectives enunciated in the budget speech are not reflected in the finance bill. So there is a wide gap between the assertions of the finance minister and their execution as per the finance bill. The country is baffled, the entire nation is baffled as to how Dr. Manmohan Singh managed to mesmerize the country with laudable objectives, but without the concerned provisions in the finance bill. Dr. Manmohan Singh went on criticizing the previous two governments of 1.5 years. But the fact remains that the economic instability in the country actually took place during the Congress rule. When the first budget was presented in August 1947 by late Sri Chettiar, the revenue receipts at that time were to the tune of rupees 170 crores, whereas the expenditure was rupees 197 crores and the deficit was rupees 27 crores. Mr. Vice Chairman, sir, as you know, the first budget was for only 6 months, but by the end of the year, the deficit was completely wiped out and the government came out successful and with a plus. In the present budget, the total expenditure of the government is rupees 119,000 and odd crores. Dr. Manmohan Singh and others from the government day in and day out say that they are curtailing government expenditure. But the figures go contrary to their assertions. When the colonial rule ended in 1947, the entire government of India was working only in the North Bloc and in the South Bloc. Now, the government has expanded so much that its offices could not be accommodated in entire New Delhi. Their offices are at Krishi Bhavan, Yojana Bhavan, Shastri Bhavan, Nirman Bhavan, and several other bhavans. Not satisfied with these, the government of India's offices are at Lodi Road also. Not only this, the government acquired even the private houses and private buildings in Delhi to accommodate their offices. So the total expenditure of the government is going up when we look at the figures in the expenditure budget. What is the total expenditure of the government on establishment and salaries? Sir, it is a fact that there are more than 43 lakhs of people working in the government of India alone. Their salary bill, established charges, emoluments, and other allowances amount to nearly 13,000 crores of rupees. If the pension bill is also added, it amounts to nearly 16,000 crores of rupees. It is the government of India's alone. And when we take the state governments, establishments, local bodies, aided institutions, and the public sector undertakings, there are more than 2 crores on their payrolls, and the total expenditure involved in it is something around 45,000 crores of rupees. Little precious has been done to reduce the expenditure of the government. As for the figures of the non-plan expenditure when compared to the last year's budget, the non-plan expenditure went up by 4,400 crores of rupees. If we calculate, the government of India spends something about rupees 165 crores per day and rupees 16,500 per second to run the show. This is on the expenditure side alone. And to meet this expenditure, the government resorted to higher taxation, and thereby the taxation has gone up, and subsequently the revenue receipts went up. The revenue receipts account for 76,000 crores of rupees roughly. Not satisfied with this, the government goes in for borrowings, borrowing money both internally and externally. The total debt burden of the government of India is roughly about 4 lakh crores of rupees. The debt servicing, that is the interest payment, alone amounts to 32,000 crores of rupees per annum. So the per capita debt in India is rupees 4,200, and if we add this figure to the debt of the state governments, the per capita debt goes up to rupees 6,000 or rupees 7,000, varying from one state to another. Even then, the government is not able to meet their expenses as they are living beyond their means. So, on one side, they are enhancing taxation, and on the other side, they are going for borrowings. As the money is still not sufficient, the government has resorted to deficit financing. Day in and day out, Dr. Manmohan Singh says that they are curtailing deficit financing. But the figures supplied by the finance minister show that the deficit financing is to the tune of 5,000 crores of rupees. But the fiscal deficit is more than rupees 34,000 crores. So, deficit financing means printing additional notes from the Nasik press. Whenever any individual issues a check without having the requisite balance in his account, the check is dishonored. But the government goes on printing notes without any legal sanction. 398 नंबर है, केसी सोर्स है, 80 स्पीड है और फुल स्टॉप का गैप दिया गया है. दोनों कंटेंट आप जो 100 और 80 में से जो बेस्ट लिखे वो टाइप करेंगे. बेस्ट ऑफ लक.